If you've been seeing the screencast series on YouTube so far, then my voice should sound somewhat familiar to you. I've been doing all the screencasts so far, and my name is Saveen Reddy. I run the program management team for business intelligence in Dynamics AX. The feedback has been very good for us. Lots of great questions, lots of great comments, and it's been very invigorating for us to see what people are trying to accomplish with the product. I love this question because the answer is straightforward. The roadmap goes one direction, and that's toward SSRS. So if you have the AX2009 product, it's simple. Start learning the SSRS framework in that product, get used to report development, get used to report deployment with SSRS. It will prepare you for where we are going long term. It turns out it's very simple to ramp up. Just take the developer edition of SQL, install it, build some simple, and with SSRS, build some simple tabular reports, and do some grouping, some totaling, and some basic charting, just some column charts. That's about it. Then, once you've done that, with the AX2009 product, go find some X++ reports that go against some simple AX queries, and just try to transition them over to SSRS. And there are just a couple of skills you're going to master there. You're going to understand, what the development experience is like with AX2009 SSRS, which is a little different from normal SQL SSRS in terms of our interaction with Visual Studio. And the second thing is you're going to learn how data sets from AX manifest themselves in SSRS, which is a little bit different than what you're used to with X++. And those two things will teach you quite a bit and prepare you for the future. So enterprise portal integration, great topic. It's something that comes up a lot in questions we get. We will get there. The screencast series will head in that direction. We'll teach you how to put reports in the EP web pages, how to put them in role centers, charts, etc., and how to do drill-throughs. It will just be a while before we get to those topics because we have so many other topics to cover first, and we have to cover those first because if you don't know those things, then you won't be successful with the enterprise portal integration. So just please be patient, and we will get there eventually. This is a question we field in the team almost every week. So there are two parts to this question. There are two answers, actually. The first is it technically possible? Of course. It's just a database. You can always create an SSRS report that goes directly against the SQL database. You don't even need our tooling integration in Visual Studio to do it. You can do it with what exists today. The better question is, should you? And here the default answer is no. And the reason is simple. The AX SSRS framework relies on the AOS to provide security. If you don't use our framework and you don't go through AOS, then security becomes your responsibility for both development and testing. And you have to have a lot of confidence in your developers and your testers to make sure that you're not violating your own security policy. So that's why I say the default answer is no for that question in terms of should you do it. Again, can you? Yes. But there's some risk there if you choose that approach. There are three areas people get hung up on when they try to transition from X++ to SSRS. Number one, data sets. Number two, metadata. Number three, layout. So data sets. SSRS features a different sort of mentality about data sets than X++ reporting. And the way you have to think about SSRS is that it expects the developer to take a bunch of tables or data sources and join them all together and flatten them into one data set and feed it to a report. And the report will render that data set. You can feed more than one data set, but SSRS cannot join those. So you have to do all the joining and sort of creation of the data set in AX and feed the report the end result. Okay, that's pretty important. Number 2, metadata. X++ reporting framework has a lot of knowledge about things like EDTs and relationships between things. That's not true with SSRS. From the SSRS perspective, when you think about how it understands AX, it merely understands that you're feeding in a data set. It knows it's receiving things called doubles and ints and strings and date times and booleans, but it doesn't know anything about EDTs. Right? So that's a big difference. That's often why some of my samples don't talk about EDTs and AX metadata, because SSRS doesn't have that concept mapped. In the future, we'll make that better, I guarantee you, but right now it's not that way. And the third, which is the hardest for people to understand, is layout. This is just a completely different world from X++ reporting. And the way I would express this is, in X++ reporting, you have a very imperative or procedural model for how to draw things on a page. There's a lot of control there in X++, and you can write code that will do things and draw things on a page. You'll know where things are and how to lay things out. SSRS is a completely different model. It's very declarative. It's functional in the way it works, right? And the analogy I'd make is X++ reporting is much more like C#, and SSRS reporting is much more like F#. And the reason I bring up that analogy is this. You can achieve 99.9% of the things you were doing in X++ reporting with SSRS. But the mapping is not straightforward, just as it would not be if you're switching from C# to F#. You have to think differently, and that is why you have to spend a lot of time playing with the SSRS framework, learning literally how to draw things out. How do you group things? How do you get things positioned on the page the way you want? How do you show and hide things? Right? And a perfect example of that layout, and this question I get every time I talk to a partner, is, does SSRS support programmable regions? And the answer is no. There's nothing in SSRS called a programmable region. That's an X++ concept. Is there something that is quite like it? Yes. You use a visibility property in SSRS to show and hide things. But there's not a one-to-one mapping to a programmable section. Okay? So, just to back up, this is why I always recommend people to take the AX2009 product and start playing, because you're going to be exposed to those 3 issues. And again, those are data sets, metadata, and layout. And layout's the most perplexing for a lot of people. So spend the time at least learning those things. And you don't even need to use AX for learning those topics, but it'll help you again in your transition later on when you are ready to move over. So we get, broadly speaking, 3 kinds of feedback or questions from people. First is we get feedback about content, like they want to see certain topics in the screencast. Well, if you have that kind of feedback, just communicate that on our YouTube channel. You can send us a message and we'll try to take care of it. The second kind of feedback is a question about how does a feature work, or is something possible. And if it's a very specific question like that about the feature set itself, again, you can talk to us on our YouTube channel and we'll try to answer that via screencast or via email or something, or blog post. If you have a deeper question that is much more of a troubleshooting or a support question, or something that is maybe very environmental specific to a setup, using the YouTube channel, communicating with us that way is really a poor way to get help. The right place to send that kind of question is in the community.dynamics.com website. There's a forum there for AX technical questions. Send those questions there, because that's where you'll see the most number of people who can actually help you. So for all future stuff, the right place to talk about that and the right time is in January. That's when we have the AX2009 Technical Conference, and the BI team will be presenting lots of sessions on both reporting and cubes, and afterwards you'll see much more publicly available information about what's next for BI and AX overall. And on behalf of the entire BI team, let me just say thank you. Thank you for your interest in the product. Thank you for your feedback and your questions. And I hope we can be of more help to you over time. Goodbye.